Today we'll talk about lung pathophysiology, but actually we'll recap a little bit about physiology to understand the pathophysiology easily. So we have to know that in the lung there are different parts and different organs. So that's organs include nostril, so nasal cavity, pharynx, and larynx, trachea, primary bronchus. Those organs are considered the dead space of the lung. So why it's dead space? Because in this area there is no gas exchange occur. The functional organ in the lung system is actually the alveoli. So alveoli is where the gas exchange occur. So in this area the ventilation occur, which means the gas exchange happen. Surround the lung there is a pleural cavity. So pleural cavity is an area, empty space. It can fill in with fluid and fill out of the fluid, depending on the status, and it with the help of lymphatic system and blood vessel. Okay. As you can see, in the inhale, the lung will expand to allow the gas to get into the lung, and during exhale, the diaphragm will move up, our rib go back, and our lung deflate. So the gas will go out, CO2 will go outside the lung. In here, in inhalation, oxygen will get in. We'll zoom in into the alveoli and see how the gas exchange process happen. Actually, the blood from pulmonary artery, deoxygenated blood full of CO2, will come, okay, via heart pump into the blood vessels surrounded the alveoli, and the gas exchange will happen. So CO2 will diffuse from blood vessel into the alveoli because the concentration of CO2 in the blood vessels are higher compared to the air sacs where CO2 concentration is low. So it's actually a simple diffusion process happen between CO2 and oxygen. So the gas exchange will be easily diffused from the air sacs to the blood vessel. So the process of blood coming into the blood coming to alveoli, it's called perfusion. So perfusion, that we perfuse the air sacs with the blood, and the process of gas exchange in and out, it's called ventilation. So we ventilate. So as we said, so the blood vessels will leave to pulmonary vein, oxygenated blood full of oxygen will go back to the left atrium, okay, and then to left ventricle, and then to be pumped into the blood, into the body system through the circulatory system. Okay, so in blood vessels we have a very thin layer of endothelial, and in the lung tissue or air sacs we have here endothelial, and here we have the epithelial cells. We'll zoom in more now and see how is the layer of respiratory system tissue. So in respiratory system, whole respiratory system covered with pseudo epithelial tissue, which is one layer of epithelial tissue, and inside, in between, there's a goblet cells. Those cells are producing mucus, and also we have the basement membrane layer, and then we have lamina propria. In lamina propria we have the immune cells that will help mast cells and macrophage to fight against infection, And then we have a small layer of smooth muscle that will allow expansion of the cells, or deflate and inflate of air sacs and lung tissue. And then in the bottom we have the gland. So increasing of number of the gland will increase the goblet cells production, and then mucus layer as well during, for example, infection. So our defense mechanism in pulmonary system include the cilia. So we have the cilia. We have also the mucociliary apparatus, which is the mucus, and cilia, and we have the cough reflex. We have mucus secretion, so with the help of goblet cells. We have also a microflora, normal microflora covered the lung system. We have also the nose hair. All of these are helping to protect our lung system or respiratory system from inhalation, bad air, polluted or infectious organs into the lung. As you see here, I wrote for you the defense mechanism that are normally exist in our respiratory system. So we'll explain here some of the terminology that used. So we have to know that there are like almost 30 million alveoli exist inside our lung, and that will help us to inhale and exhale around 4 to 6 liter per minute. Okay, so so the normal inspiration, that normally when we normally inspire and then expire, or inhale and exhale, this is called our tidal volume. So this is our normal inspiration. But when we force our lung, to inhale, like, so that's called inspiratory reserve volume. This is the maximum air that you can forcefully inhale, okay? And when you forcefully exhale this air, it's called expiratory reserve volume. So that's when you force your lung. So this is the maximum that you can force out. Whatever, even if we force inhale or force exhale, and in the normal inspiration, there's some air will stay inside our lung or trapped. It's called residual volume. This is normal. So in the normal people, the residual volume is from 0, okay, to almost 20 or 25, 15, whatever. So this is the maximum air that you can keep inside your lung. So the lung will never be empty. There will always be air inside our lung, okay? So in here we have the total lung capacity, as we can say. So the total lung capacity, it's lung can occupy, how much the lung can occupy normally, okay? Okay. So total lung capacity, we measure it by adding the total air that we can forcefully inhale plus total air we can forcefully exhale, okay? So it's IRV plus ARV plus RV. This is the volume. So this is the total lung capacity. It's include this one, and this one. So as you see, we didn't include tidal volume because tidal volume will be included when we add ERV to IRV. Okay. Great. So we have to know that the ventilation, okay, and perfusion are not the same in the upper layer of the lung compared to the bottom layer of the lung, okay? So ventilation to perfusion. So as we can expect it, in the upper layer of the lung or upper loop of the lung, the ventilation will be higher because it's very close to the trachea, okay, and large bronchiole. where when we move down into the lung, so the ventilation will be decreased. But however, when we look into perfusion, okay, I will give it a red color, okay, perfusion, because it's involved the blood. So perfusion, it's always higher in the bottom, and as we move up there, so up to the lung or down, so the perfusion actually is higher here. So we have higher perfusion here. In the middle we have like equal perfusion to ventilation. In the top we have lower perfusion, higher ventilation. Why? Because in the bottom of the lung it's very close to the heart system, so to the pulmonary artery, so then the blood supply will be higher in the bottom of the lung. So this called ventilation to perfusion ratio. Okay, so I think this is enough for physiology of the lung. We don't need to know more, but then we'll now move to the pathophysiology of respiratory system. Okay, so what kind of disease that can happen to the respiratory system? This is a very general pathophysiology. So that disease, it can involve even a problem with oxygen coming into the lung. So the oxygen cannot be inhaled. So what kind of disease that can prevent oxygen from being inhaled? Disease that can prevent normal inhalation, or oxygen getting into the lung, we call this group of disease restrictive disease. Restrictive. So what can restrict oxygen from getting into the lung? There are different types of disease that can prevent this. That include like fibrosis disease. That we are losing part of our lung. Tissue are dying, so they died and replaced by fibroblast cells. So the alveoli will be replaced by fibroblasts that will cause fibrosis. Other type of disease, that if we have fluid also accumulated inside the lung, so if the fluid accumulates inside the lung, it will take some of the spaces to allow air sacs to exchange gas. So it will affect ventilation. Diseases like pleural effusion or pneumonia, okay, or pneumonia. Okay, so we'll go through this disease later on. Other type of disease, it's diseases related that CO2 cannot exhale from the lung. CO2 will be trapped in the lung. So what will make CO2 trapped? Those group of disease, we call them obstructive. So we have obstruction. So CO2 cannot go outside of the lung. This group are a group of disease. We can put them into category: emphysema, okay, and chronic bronchitis. Okay. Last type of disease, if we zoom into alveoli and see what kind of disease as well can happen, disease related to ventilation. Let me use ventilation, black color, ventilation, or disease caused by perfusion. So what can prevent blood to perfuse to the what can prevent blood from perfuse into the air sacs? Like if we have blood blockage, if there's a blockage, so the blood cannot move into the lung and perfuse the air sacs, like emboli, okay, or problem with blood system. We have problem with our cardiac system. our cardiac, it doesn't work properly, so it cannot pump enough blood to the lung. So then we have a problem with perfusion. So the blood supply will be low, and then the tissue will start to die because we don't have enough blood coming to the lung tissue. In terms of ventilation, so what kind of disease we can have related to ventilation problem? If our air sacs for any reason fill in with fluid, so the gas will not be able to diffuse normally. We know that gas can diffuse easily in the empty spaces, okay? But if there is a fluid inside the air sacs, the gas cannot diffuse normally. So what will cause air sacs to have a fluid inside them? It can be because we have a problem with inflammation. Okay, inflammation like pneumonia. So in pneumonia we have problem because we have inflammation, so the blood vessels, if you remember the stages of inflammation, blood vessels will be stretched, and then the fluid will come inside the air sacs, will accumulate. We have a lot of mucus, so those will prevent air sacs from working normally. Okay, so pneumonia or edema as well. Edema can occur because of different reasons, like if we have problem as well with cardiac system, so the blood will be congested, will return back to the lung because the blood pressure wherever, so it will accumulate inside the lung. Okay, so we have to know that as well in restrictive disease and obstructive disease, what happened basically. So if we compare restrictive to normal lung, so in restrictive the lung will be smaller, will shrink, so the lung will be smaller compared to the normal lung. So the lung, it has a problem, it cannot expand normally. Why the lung cannot expand? There's a restriction. Either there are muscle problem, or the pleural effusion around the lung, it's full of fluid, or there's a fluid taking a space from the lung, so the lung will lose their elasticity. So in this case, we expect total lung capacity to be less. So we'll lose some of the volume. Total lung capacity will be lost, okay? Residual volume as well will be low. Everything will be low. IRV will be low. We cannot force a lot of air inside the lung because the lung is small anyway, okay? In the case of obstructive, the lung will be inflated. The lung will be enlarged because what? In those patients, we cannot get oxygen in, okay? In here we cannot get CO2 out. So what happened then? CO2 will be trapped. So RV, residual volume, amount of air trapped will be high. So the lung is inflated but cannot shrink, it's expanded but it cannot shrink and force the air to go out. Cannot, okay? The air cannot go out of the lung. Total lung capacity will increase. Of course, total lung capacity will increase because the lung expanded and inflated and enlarged. Okay, so this figure will explain to you exactly what happened. So as you see here in obstructive lung disease, the residual volume increase, okay? Total lung capacity increase as well, so we have higher lung capacity. So in this case here, total lung capacity is shrink, so we have smaller lung. Total lung capacity is less. Residual volume also will be decreased, and everything else also will be decreased. But as you can see here, ERV, the blue one, which stands for ERV, expiratory. So expiratory reserve volume will increase in the restrictive lung disease will be high because the lungs are very stiff and unable to expand and contract properly due to, as we said, lung fibrosis or wherever. So as we said here, so lung cannot expand, so that will affect the ARV. Okay, so when we compare here IRV to ERV, so IRV is low, while ERV is high. IRV, if you remember, during inhale, the lung, what happened? We need to expand. During inhale, we need to expand the lung. We need to inflate the lung. The lung cannot inflate, so there is no enough oxygen can come. Lung cannot inflate. We have problem with expansion. While in ARV, so for us to exhale. So what happened during exhalation? So that those patients can force their lung to shrink more and exhale the gases inside. So we won't have a lot of residual volume anyway. So this is how the spirograms will look like in a patient with, this is a way to diagnose patient with obstructive or obstructive lung disease. Now we'll dip inside more into each type of disease in another video.